Are all the subclass that Matthew created broken? Matthew Mercer, fantastic DM, creator of fantastic worlds. In his years as a DM, he did what all of us do, which is to create some homebrew to fit our world. Because despite the fact that there's over 100 subclasses in total which are officially published, we still feel like it's not enough or that it doesn't fit our setting the way we want it to. So we create our own. In this video, I'll be reviewing and ranking all of the subclasses that Matthew Mercer did. I'll rank them from E tier to A tier, with a special S tier for those subclasses which are really good. First of all, let's start with smashing the like button for the YouTube algorithm. Done? Okay, let's go with the wizards first. So Matthew created two brand new wizards, where he created a new branch of magic called Dunamancy. If you look at the spells of Dunamancy, there's not that many of them, but of the spells that are here, most of them fit within the balance that Wizard of the Coast has established, with a few outliers like Gift of Alacrity, which is absolutely absurd for a first level spell. Let's move on to the first subclass, the Chronurgist. Chronurgist? The Time Wizard. So, first ability. You're so freaking smart that your brain starts before the other in combat and you get a bonus to initiative. And on top of that, the meat and potatoes of this subclass, which allows you to alter the time so that an enemy or an ally making an attack roll or a saving throw has to reroll, which can be good or bad depending on how you want it. It's an extremely good ability, which reminds us a little bit of the Divination Wizard. After that, you can freeze enemies in time. They are stuck in place until they take some damage. Only issue with this ability is that it's a Constitution saving throws, which tends to be high on most monsters, but it's a very solid ability. Next up is Arcane Abeyance, which allows you, at the moment of casting a spell, condense it into a single bead of energy, which you can give to someone, and that someone can unleash the bead as an action, unleashing the magic. Now, this ability is nothing too broken, right? Right? You might be wondering, oh, that's great, the barbarian this way can get a haste spell, cast it, they're having the concentration, and this way you as the wizard can concentrate on something else. Yeah, that's a good use of it. But this ability can get broken very easily. Let me explain. This ability ignores casting time. The spell that you've condensed is an action to release, no matter the casting time of that spell. Meaning that you can very well use your little familiar, send them on the battlefield with a bead of energy which contains Leomund's Tiny Hut, for example. You now have the perfect cover against all enemies' attack, and as long as your familiar stays inside of it, there's nothing the enemies can do. Or Magic Circle, for example. Yeah, that ability it's a bit ridiculous. It's very, very easy to abuse. And finally, the last ability, which allows you to decide on the outcome of a roll. You choose whether it succeeds or it fails. Oh yeah, that's good. Caveat, you get an exhaustion point. But one exhaustion point a day is nothing too bad. And it can come really clutch in some tough situations. For example, you need to persuade the Bright Queen of something, boom, automatic success. So, how does this subclass do? Well, without Arcane Abeyance, it's a very solid subclass. I would say it's an amazing subclass actually. It's on par with Divination Wizard, which is one of the best wizard subclass out there. Issue is, with Arcane Abeyance, it becomes broken. There's too many abuses which are possible with this ability. So this class gets an S tier because it's just that good that it's actually kind of broken. But Wizards of the Coast judged the subclass to be fine before publishing it, so who am I to say? Next up, the Graviturgist Wizard, which is an amazing idea where you control gravity and crush your enemies with it. First ability, you get the ability to make an ally or an enemy slower or faster, and you need to concentrate on it, which is decent, I guess. The concentration is a bit of an issue. After that, each time you deal damage to a creature with a spell or it fails a saving throw, you can move them 5 feet in any direction as the gravity pushes them. Written as it is right now, it says a creature. And apparently, when you're in an area of effect spell, you're still a target. So technically, if you cast a fireball, you could move all creatures inside 5 feet. It allows some battlefield control, which comes in handy. It's definitely DM fiat on whether or not area of effect spells work on this, but Even then, Scorching Ray, for example, 3 targets, you can push back all 3 5 feet. After that, you can use your reaction to increase the velocity of attacks so that they deal more damage, or increase the speed at which a creature is falling 5 times per day. Max.
Hey, Ron. Hey, Billy.
Yeah, like the extra damage is like 1d10 on the attacks, so you can deal an extra 5d10 damage. That's the ability. Not that strong. And finally, last ability, Event Horizon, which allows you to create this gravity well centered on you, which freezes creature into place if they try to get close to you. Only issue is it targets all creature within 30 feet of you, and as a wizard, you're probably going to be in the back lines with other members of your party. You're not going to be in the front lines with the enemies, which are going to be within 30 feet of you. Otherwise, they're just going to attack you, break the concentration on the ability. So the ability is strong, but yeah. So how does the subclass perform? Well, apart from the amazing cool factor of controlling gravity, it's actually not that strong. It's fairly well balanced, but a bit on the weaker side of things. So in my eyes, it gets between a C and a B tier. For the purposes of the video, I'll give it a C tier. Now, let's jump to the fighter after the wizard. Completely different. There again, 2 subclasses, the Gunslinger and the Echo Knight. First, the Echo Knight. So, I've talked in depth about the Echo Knight in other videos of mine, which you can check out here. But to summarize it, it's extremely strong. You get a teleportation ability as well, you can summon a clone which does attacks for you, takes damage for you, is the perfect scout, and on top of that, it cannot be targeted by the vast majority of spells, because it's not a creature. The Echo Knight is actually, in my opinion, a bit too strong for a fighter subclass, so it gets an easy S tier. Kind of broken tier, yeah. A lot of broken things so far, eh? Now, let's talk about the first subclass that Mattew Mercer created, the Gunslinger. So this subclass, let's give it a bit of context first. Critical Role was not always a stream. It started as a home game, and they were actually playing Pathfinder at the beginning, and the Gunslinger is a Pathfinder class. So when they switched and decided to play 5e, everybody had to change their class and character to move onto 5e. The only issue was Percival de Rollo was not convertible that easily because there was no equivalent. So Matt had to create his own. Keep in mind, Matthew had no experience with D&D 5e at this point in time. He was brand new to the game. So when he created the subclass, well, he just basically took what was Pathfinder and put it in D&D. Which leads to this subclass which has some very strange design ideas which are not in line with the rest of 5e. Keep in mind, this subclass was designed by one DM for one player. It was never meant to be published. In the end it did, because Critical Role became what it is today. So, first ability of the subclass. You become a US citizen and you get the amazing ability to use guns. On top of that, you become proficient with Tinker's Tool, which allows you to fix your guns in case of a misfire. Because now, scrap the ideas of the Dungeon Master's Guide firearm. These are special firearms with up to 7 properties, when the DMG has like 2 properties max. These firearms all have the misfire property. On a natural 1, the gun becomes jammed, and you need to switch gun until you can fix it. You get grit points, which allow you to use trick shots. Trick shots are similar to battle master maneuvers, and they are fueled by those grit points. Those grit points come back on a short or long rest, or every time you score a critical hit, or kill a particularly important creature. The trick shots allow you to push back your enemies, deal more damage, get advantage on an attack. All in all, very, very cool stuff. Really reminiscent of what a battle master does. After that, you get bonus to your initiative, which is always nice, and the ability to draw a new weapon as part of the stowing action, which is great because, well, you're probably gonna be jamming your guns a lot. You're a fighter, you roll very often. You can then reload your weapons as a bonus action, which is great because as a fighter, you probably don't have that many uses of your bonus action. I will discuss a slight issue that comes up here. A lot of the balance of the subclass is the idea of natural ones and the idea of reloading your gun. That is completely thrown out the window as soon as you take halflings in consideration, because they reroll all natural ones. So this whole part of the balance is completely destroyed by this race. And when you take in consideration the new feats which came out, for example, the gunner feat, which says that if a gun has the reload property, you can ignore it. So this whole part of the subclass goes out the window. But granted, this feat wasn't printed when Matt released the subclass. After that, you crit on a 19 or 20 and get your grit points back on a 19 or 20. And after that, your critical hits deal even more damage. So, how is this subclass balanced? Well, like I mentioned earlier, it's not a bad subclass at all. I really like the flavor of it, like guns are super cool idea. It differs quite a bit from what Wizard and 5e design is like. It's a lot more complex and kind of janky a little compared to what a regular fighter subclass would be. For example, the Echo Knight, which was published a lot later, is a lot better written, I would say, which makes sense because Matt had like multiple years of experience with 5e by that point. The Gunslinger, solid subclass, I would say it's probably an A tier, but I will say, if you're a player and you want to try the Gunslinger, instead I would really recommend grabbing a Battle Master and using either a reflavored crossbow, either actual guns from the Dungeon Master Guide. This will get you a lot further and feel a whole lot smoother and better as an experience because the Gunslinger relies a lot on DM fiat, for example the price for the weapons, the bullets, fixing your weapons and so on. It requires more work from the DM, let's say, which all DM might not be ready to do. But like I said, keep in mind this was the first ever subclass that Matthew created for 5e. Now let's talk about a more obscure subclass from Matthew Mercer. I forgot it existed until I did research for this video. The Runechild Sorcerer, which was in his guide to Tal'Dorei, and is a fun subclass. Is it any good? Well, let's see. First, you get the cool ability called Tattoos, man! Oh yeah. Okay, this class is an S tier. End of the video. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm just kidding. But yeah, you get cool tattoos all over your body. You get a number of tattoos equal to your level in Sorcerer, and each time you use sorcery points, your tattoos start to glow. When your tattoos are glowing, you can use them. You can do so many things with them, like reducing the damage you take by 1d6. And that's it. Yeah. I mean, you can give one tattoo to one of your allies until they take 1d6 damage, but to do so requires your full action. Yeah, it's not that great. But let's move on, the later abilities are different. After that, you can expand a rune to get advantage, strength-based or constitution-based or dexterity-based check, which is alright, I guess. I mean, as a sorcerer, you probably don't do those checks very often, so but it's there if you want to use it. And on top of that, you can expand a rune to reveal any enchantment or runes which are present in a 15-foot radius around you. It's basically like detect magic, but worse. Then you get Runic Torrent, which basically allows you to ignore resistances and immunities by expanding a number of runes equal to the spell that you cast. Yeah, you see that fire elemental over there? Let me cast a fireball on it, and it's gonna be in pain. Don't ask me question, it just works. It's actually super fun to be able to do so. The final ability of that sorcerer, which allows you to transform, grow a beard, get tattoos everywhere, you have so much testosterone that you're flying. Not quite, but your spells become harder to resist, you become resistant to spells, you can fly, and you regain health every time you cast a spell. It's a very fun and very cool transformation. So, how does this subclass do? Well, the flavor is on point. This tattoos all over your body which protect you, but mechanically speaking, the first two abilities are really weak, and you only start to get the good abilities at level 14 and 18, and at those levels of play, well, most campaigns don't go there, so most people won't get to enjoy these abilities. So because of that, this subclass gets a C tier from me. So now that we're done with Wizard and Sorcerer, let's go to our favorite Monk subclass, the Beauregard subclass. The Cobalt Soul Monk. I really like this subclass, the flavor is just mwah. But how does it perform mechanically? Well, let's see. So, at first level, every time you use your Flurry of Blow to punch an enemies, you get to learn their resistances, their immunities to damage, and their vulnerabilities, which is amazingly good. And on top of that, each time you do that, the enemy is marked. And when it is marked, when it misses you with an attack, you can punish it and punch them yourself. Next up, you can punch someone and make you and your allies a whole lot more persuasive. And they cannot lie, which means that you can punch someone repeatedly until they tell you the truth. Isn't torture just the best? Then you get to learn a lot of intelligence-based skills and get proficient with them, or expertise, which is really neat, but Monk is already a very mad class, which means that they don't have that many ability points to put into intelligence to make those skills better. So at best, you'll get decent at those skills. Beauregard doesn't count because Marisha rolled some godly stats, and on top of that, the intelligence of Borgar, I'm sure, is also half due to Marisha being an amazing note taker. After that, you can burn your key to get extra reactions. And finally, last abilities, when you punch someone, you can expend some key to make them vulnerable to the next instance of damage of the type which you select that they take. So a fun combo here is you have this monk, and you have a divination wizard. This monk punches an enemy, give them vulnerability to force damage. Then it's the wizard's turn. They cast Disintegrate. Use their portent ability to force a failure on the save. The creature is vulnerable to the damage, so they take double. Watch as the big bad evil guy just vanishes from existence. I'm a fire in my leg. So, how is this subclass? Well, it's super fun. You get to do a lot of cool stuff. I would say, for me, this gets between a B tier and an A tier. I'm gonna go and give it an A tier, because I really like that subclass. Finally, my favorite Matt Mercer subclass, the Oath of the Open Sea, featuring Travis Willingham. I wish he was in the video, but here's a picture of him. The focus on freedom here is grandiose, and the flavor is once again amazing. You can see that Matt now has a few years of experience with 5e and has gotten a lot better at writing subclasses. You get a very cool channel divinity with Marine Layer, which allows you to create a fog around you. Mind you, it's a fog, meaning that true sight doesn't see through it, and only you can see through this fog or the enemy that you're within 5 feet of, or the ally. A cool combo with that is to take the mobile feat, rush in, slash an enemy, and regardless whether you hit or miss, run away and hide inside of your fog so the enemy cannot find you or your allies. That channel divinity is great. The other one, not so much. It allows you to push back enemies and they take a bit of damage if they hit a surface. But as a paladin, you usually want to stay in melee with your enemies, so pushing them away with each hit is not that great. You only have so much movement. We also have the paladin spell list. So although this spell list, the flavor is absolutely 100 and is on point, it's not the best. The spells on it are quite weak. Then you get Aura of Liberation, which prevents you from being grappled, restrained, expand 5 feet of movement to escape any kind of grapple. This is basically the spell Freedom of Movement without a spell slot and permanently, which makes me question why that spell is even on the spell list. Then you get Stormy Waters, which allows you as a reaction to summon waves which knocks down your enemy, keeping them in melee with you because they need to expend half movement just to stand up. It's actually quite useful for a paladin. And finally, the last ability, which turns you into a mythic swashbuckler. You become a beast in one-on-one combat. You can slash through your enemies. You become extremely deadly. So, how does this subclass rank? Well, it's good, but not so good that it's broken. So it gets A tier from me. Amazing paladin subclass. My favorite one, I think, from everything that Matthew created. Highly recommended. So, are all the subclass that Matthew created broken? Well, not really. As you can see, some of them definitely are, or have some odd things to them, let's say, with the Gunslinger. Some of them are straight up broken, like Echo Knight in my opinion, and Chronurgist Wizard, which also takes the cake. I mean, I'm sure some people in the comment can tell me otherwise, and maybe their experience with the game was different, but from my playtest and my years of D&D, that's definitely what I saw. I like that you can see that when he started, the subclasses he created were a lot less high quality-wise, and now that he's got years of experience, he's able to create amazing things like the Oath of the Open Sea, which I absolutely love. So yeah, good on you, Matt. A lot of very fun subclasses. I encourage you to try most of them. And if you like this video, and make sure to subscribe, Matthew will release another subclass sometime in the future. Maybe. Thank you for watching the video. If you want another video where I go in depth about the things that Matthew created, you can check it here. That was Evan from MonkeyDM. If you're not subscribed, feel free to do so. I will love you if you do, and I'll see you next time. I yelled so much in my camera, my voice is like... But all for a good video.